It is 6 p.m. here in Cairo, time for the news bulletin, and we will be starting straight away with the main headlines. With the participation of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, the 34th Arab League Summit kicks off on Saturday in the Iraqi capital Baghdad. The Palestinian cause will be on top of the summit's agenda, concentrating on establishing a ceasefire, the opening of a border crossing, as well as facilitating the entrance of the humanitarian aid to Gaza. The summit will also discuss the files concerned with the Arab national security, combating terrorism, the crisis in Syria, Sudan, Yemen and Libya, solidarity with Lebanon, as well as the water files, on top of which is the Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. In a preparatory ministerial meeting, the Arab League Secretary General Ahmed Abul-Ghait said that the summit is being held at a turning point of the Arab nation's history, which requires a single Arab stance to the challenges. The Pan-Arab body's chief called for adopting a unified speech on halting the ongoing genocide war and the ethnic cleansing practiced by the Israeli occupation authority against the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. In his speech at the preparatory ministerial meeting for the Arab Summit, Iraqi Foreign Minister Fuad Hussein asserted the country's support to the Egyptian reconstruction plan for Gaza without the displacement of Palestinians. He also stressed the importance of delivering humanitarian aid to Gaza's Palestinian population and launching relief and early recovery operations. Minister of Foreign Migration and the Egyptian Expatriates Affairs, Badr Abdelati, asserted that Egypt completely refuses the policy of collective punishment and starvation in the Gaza Strip, which is a severe violation of the international law. During his meeting with the Palestinian Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mohammed Mustafa, on the sidelines of the Arab ministerial meeting in Baghdad, Abdelati reviewed the Egyptian efforts to resume a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip. The two sides tackled the preparations for Egypt hosting the international conference for the reconstruction in the Gaza Strip. Egypt firmly condemned the continuous Israeli aggression against the innocent Palestinian civilians in the Gaza Strip. In a statement for the Foreign Ministry, Egypt warned of the repercussions of the Israeli aggression, asserting that the Israeli government must be held accountable for the continuous violation of the international humanitarian law. The statement reiterated the joint responsibility of the international community in confronting the continuous injustice towards the Palestinian people. The Palestinian National Council Speaker Rouhi Fattouh said the Israeli genocide crimes committed in the Gaza Strip's town of Jabalia and in towns east of the Strip's Khan Yunis city are targeting the unarmed civilian Palestinians. The speaker stressed that these and previous Israeli massacres that are committed for more than 585 days are flagrant violations to the Geneva Accords and to the Rome Statute, the founding treaty of the International Criminal Court. Fattouh said that the Israeli government's impunity and rejection of any credible initiative for putting an end to the ongoing crimes in Gaza are further proofs of the grave failure of the international bodies that govern the international relations. The death toll of the ongoing Israeli bombardment across the Gaza Strip rose to 74 people, raising the overall toll from the similar attacks to more than 150 people over the last 2 days. The Palestinian Health Ministry reported dozens more injured in the attacks that hit the Jabalia refugee camp, the outskirts of the central Deir al-Balah and the city of Khan Yunis overnight into Friday morning. Palestinians described the panic in northern Gaza due to the brutal attacks that also caused several hospitals to stop functioning. Meanwhile, the Israeli blockade of Gaza that is preventing food, fuel, medicine and other supplies from entering entered the third month. Earlier this week, a new humanitarian organization that has U.S. backing to take over aid delivery said that it expects to begin operations before the end of the month. A statement from the group called the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation identified several U.S. military veterans, former humanitarian coordinators and security contractors that it said would lead the delivery effort. However, the UN said the system does not align with the humanitarian principles and won't be able to meet the needs of Palestinians in Gaza and won't participate in it. On Friday, families of the Israeli captives in Gaza said that the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is wasting a historic opportunity for a deal to bring the relatives home. In a statement released by the Hostage Forum, which supports them, the families called on the Israeli government to join hands with the U.S. President Donald Trump's efforts to release the hostages. The Council of Europe said that Gaza was suffering from a deliberate starvation and warned that Israel was sowing the seeds for the next Hamas in the territory. Earlier, the U.S. President Donald Trump said that a lot of people are starving in the besieged territory, vowing to get that taken care of. He was winding up his Arab Gulf tour, which included key mediator Qatar, with no announcement of a breakthrough over the end of the war. However, Trump repeated claims that Washington should take Gaza and turn it into a freedom zone. In the West Bank, violence by the Israeli occupation forces and settlers against the Palestinians escalated, particularly in the northern Sulfate Governorate. The escalation follows a shooting incident that left the settler woman killed and another settler injured late on Wednesday. The shooting came a day after the Israeli occupation forces killed 5 Palestinians in the towns of Tamun and Tubas, also in northern West Bank. Hundreds of Palestinians have been killed in the West Bank in months of violence that surged there after the start of the war in Gaza. Delegations from Kiev and Moscow are in Istanbul set to hold the first direct talks on the possibility of ending the conflict in Ukraine for more than 3 years. The details follow.
Delegations from Kiev and Moscow are in Istanbul on Friday set to hold their first direct talks on the possibility of ending the war in Ukraine for more than 3 years. Russian delegation in Istanbul is being led by Vladimir Medensky, while Ukraine's side is headed by Defense Minister Rostom Umerov. Expectations are low for the talks initially proposed by Vladimir Putin after the Russian leader declined Vladimir Zelensky's call for a presidential summit in Turkey and instead dispatched a lower-level delegation. American Secretary of State Marco Rubio said on Thursday he had little hope that the Russia-Ukraine talks in Istanbul would produce a peace breakthrough after the two sides traded insults during attempts built up to negotiations. Russian President Putin decided against going to Istanbul, and Ukraine's leader Zelensky sent to the country's defense minister, but it was unclear that kind of talks would be held between the rivals who have been at war for more than 3 years. Turkish officials said that trilateral talks between Russia, Ukraine and Turkey are on the agenda for Friday, and there would be talks between American, Ukrainian and Turkish officials.
India and Pakistan accused each other of failing to control their nuclear weapons, calling on the world to monitor their neighbor's arsenal just days after the most serious military confrontation in 2 decades. Indian Defense Minister Rajnath Singh said Pakistan's nuclear arsenal should be under the surveillance of the UN's Atomic Energy Agency, while Islamabad said that the international community should investigate a black market in India. The latest conflict between India and Pakistan had sparked global concerns that it could spiral into a full-blown war before a ceasefire was brokered on Saturday. Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Group said that it was concerned over the challenges to global trade as the ministers from the APEC countries met in South Korea in the shadow of growing woes from the U.S. tariffs. Trade ministers from the top economies that make up the APEC are meeting on South Korea's Jeju Island amid concerns for the global trading system since the U.S. President Donald Trump unveiled bombshell levies on most partners. They urged greater cooperation, saying they remain committed to the APEC as a means of bringing them together to address the economic challenges facing the region. Oil prices steadied after tumbling on the possibility of a breakthrough in the Iran nuclear talks, fueled by the U.S. President Donald Trump, saying progress had been made on a deal. Brent North Sea crude was up 0.5% at $64.86 per barrel, and the West Texas Intermediate added 0.5% at $61.93 per barrel. And this brings us to the end of the news bulletin for today. Thank you for watching and goodbye.